Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're taking a break from drawing. I want to do a response to my art challenge. If I can spell it right. A challenge. Ta-da-da. Oh, in case you're curious, it looks like a big crayon. It's these things, King Art. Yeah, I saw them at Walmart, and I didn't realize it says gel sticks. I didn't realize they were like big crayons, but they're actually really cool. This is newsprint, so it smudges a little bit. Well, anyway, hey, moving forward, remember last time we talked about drawing 10 of something. What I opted to do is with my big ego, I was like going, okay, I'm going to draw 100 of something. I didn't get that far. I couldn't find all my material, but I drew D&D characters, and I want to explain some of them. If you guys want to use any of these in your own campaign, feel free. I don't care. It's just kind of again, it was a creativity exercise. I'm not a fashion designer, and I didn't want to get into all the details with the straps and whatever like that. That's part of the reason why I don't draw a lot of animes, because, especially Vash the Stampede, and anyway, if you get that reference, you'll know that he's got tons of buckles and straps, and it's crazy. But starting it off, I didn't get to 100, but I got pretty far. So what I have here is I have a disgraced monk character. What we don't know is the sword makes her do things. The sword's intelligent. It's kind of obscure and weird. There's a holographic projection back here. See this little ball? It floats around, and I see this as kind of like not really a player character, but more like an NPC that follows around. What it is it's the soul of a demonic being that's trapped in there, and he has very minor access to magic, but he could be like a familiar to somebody. He could be like a scout, and he's virtually indestructible, but he's kind of like playing nice to get the party to help him. Of course, he's victimized and all this, but he belongs in this mercenary troop that I've created called the Companions. This girl, no idea. She's got some problems. I don't know what her deal is. She might be, I don't know. I don't know what her deal is. I don't have a backstory for all of them, okay? This one, I always thought it would be intriguing to play like a knight type character or some kind of warrior. And that's a giant stone hovering around inside his armor. In fact, he was turned to stone, and he's I don't know, kind of like a reanimated statue. Somehow he was reanimated inside the armor, a lot like Full Metal Alchemist. I know one of the brothers was trapped in a suit of armor. His situation is very similar. And again, I don't know if you can see it, but his morning star is just kind of like attached to his wrist here. He's kind of like, yeah, whatever, clanking around. No stealth abilities whatsoever. This gal is undead. I don't know what her deal is, but I sure did love drawing her hair. I love drawing hair, period, guys. It's a lot of fun. And then I got my dwarf guy with SpongeBob SquarePants things going on here. I think he's wearing a kilt. I don't know. Again, this goes back to 2017. This is part of my challenge, and you guys can remember, I did flesh these out using a colored pencil first and then going back over it. And again, the point wasn't super hyper cool detail. It was just creativity and having fun. So let's move on. All right, the next one. Yeah, I added my own censored box back in the day, but we'll start off on this side. This guy's a bard. He's like a minstrel, and he's fabulous, obviously, and he's annoying everybody. And then we got another monk guy here, and who is, I don't know if he's going to chop this berserker guy or whatever. Now, we know that some of the Viking berserkers did go into combat naked, and they would bite their tongues and froth at the mouth, and they would kind of go crazy. So that's what this guy is. He's some kind of crazy, tattooed, well-built brawler guy, but he goes into combat nude, which is just crazy, but there we go. And this warrior gal has dragon skin armor. Obviously, you can see she has some kind of scale mail going on, and she's cracking up over here. Maybe at the censored box. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. I got a guy here who's like an undead warrior. He's got all sorts of weapons and stuff stuck in him, and it's almost like his body is the sheath of his own weapons, if you can believe that. Crazy, right? There's like a scarecrow looking dude here using the telephone pole sized quarterstaff back there. Great shoes. A weird legionnaire type guy. Again, I was trying to push the limits on who would be in here, and some of the details going to be really extravagant on some of the guys, and some of it is not. I really like this cowardly tower shield guy. If you'll notice, his armor is just real pristine and everything. But his shield has taken so much damage over the years, you know, because he knows how to do some shield warfare for sure. Okay, so, and I think these are out of order, maybe, I don't know. But here we got a paladin guy, like a holy warrior or a knight, and he's got the Fabio hair, and he's very dashing and all this. And then I've got a group of goblin-looking guys over here with, you know, one with really great hair, and he's like, yeah, this guy's nothing. He's, you know, he's garbage. He's, you know what that is. And then here's the dude's horse. I don't know if the horse counts as a member of the companions. This guy's just kind of like unsure of all of it. I put a little exclamation mark above this guy's head, but I didn't bother to you know, to finish it. But I like those little guys, are pretty cool. All right, here I've got a weird kind of burnt up serial killer kind of purge mask looking guy with a weird butcher's bib thing going on. So I don't know. Here I have a Mediterranean looking corsair type guy, like some kind of pirate in the Mediterranean. He definitely has dreads, looks black, but you know, he could be Arabic-ish, I guess, like from Sinbad or something. Here I have a golem, a Frankenstein-like creature. I'm intrigued with golems, to be honest with you guys. I've always wondered, like, I know that they're in Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. They had rules about I can't remember what it was called, but it was like, because they're already animated, but it's like they're almost given sentience, where they're given awareness. And yeah, anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that, but golems kind of trip me out. And this being a flesh golem type guy who's really in bad shape, and all the cool magical stuff that's kind of holding his body together there. And then of course we have some little assassin looking girl with the crazy, you know, fingernails from Thailand kind of thing. So obviously those are metal, you know, they're weapons. Anyway, pretty cool. Moving on. All right, we've got a true Amazon here, because the Amazon women, they, you know, apparently in ancient Greece, from the island that the Amazons came from, not the Amazon, that's different, but the archers would actually remove a breast. Crazy, right? That's just out of history, apparently. So I wanted to represent with her, even though she has a mohawk and all this other jazz. So hey, whatever. It's my creative license. Here I got some elves. You know, elves in D&D, I don't like how eternal they are, but because they're so far removed, the Tolkien elves, they're so much further removed from anything, you know, any of the other mortal type creatures, because they have such long lifespans. I always found it very interesting integrating elves into a campaign. I had always wondered about elves in a kind of like a weird administrative fashion, like, you know, long after you're gone, 10 generations from now, I will still be running things, you know, so I could see them in like really uber duber societies, you know, maybe like Eberron, that campaign setting where they would actually be running, you know, they would be government officials, you know, they would be, you know, I don't know, just because they're just, their knowledge base and everything, they're just so far beyond any other creatures. But I digress. And then I've got another dwarf guy with like a dual crossbow, and my friend who's Chicano is like, hey, what's up, Holmes? You know, he's making fun of me, saying that this guy, you know, why doesn't he have a full beard? He looks like, you know. Anyway, I'm just kind of like, whatever, dude. Just, it's my creative license, not yours. And here I got like an ogre looking guy, or maybe like an orcish type fella here. He's got the shrunken heads going on, and he's eyeballing this other orcish gal. And then there's this guy who's just completely far removed from any kind of attraction situation. He's just like some kind of battle priest or something. As you'll notice, she's drawn the blade out, and I gave her like a lot of hair on her arms and stuff. But some of the other cool little detail that's fun to do, you know, and make like little tiny things in here, you know, like the way that some of the weapons are accented and that sort of thing. So anyway, but it's a lot of fun. I particularly like how his hair's pulled up, and you know, drawing the rings in his eyes and his ears. That was a lot of fun. The little shrunken head guys. Anyway, moving on. Oh, this one. So this one here, it's a couple of giants, and you know, probably husband and wife, but their powers manifest. They're probably sorceress of some, you know, kind of sorcerers, and And I couldn't miss the opportunity to draw these little guys, dude with the chicken shield, and they were like, and they're obviously afraid of giants, so they're not part of the companions. They took off, but these guys are. So kind of fun and interesting. Who says they all need to be human size, right? Here I've got homage to the Three Musketeers, and the fourth musketeer, who's a halfling guy who can't hold his liquor, obviously. But anyway. So anyway, the art's pretty low budget. It was fast and loose, put a little fez on this guy, and these guys all got their rapiers and whatever, and he's got his little rapier, and he wants to be part of the crew, so whatever. It's pretty cool. Moving on. I got a druid guy with all these crazy sprite fairy things that follow him around, and he's basically put a beehive on himself. I saw a program one time, I think it was in the show that was short-lived, called The Bastard Executioner. And there was a character in one of the seasons, I think it was the second season, where he was a crusader. And he was all burned up. And you didn't realize that was part of his power, is he, I guess maybe all of his nerve endings were shot. And he wasn't supposed to survive it, but he did. But he would immolate himself. And he'd go into combat on fire. And I was like, whoa, it was pretty epic. If you get a chance to watch it, that was, whoa, it was crazy idea. I don't know if there was ever guys like that. But this guy, I thought, how cool would it be to be like a swarm master guy, but you're actually wearing the swarm. Nobody would want to get near you if you were covered in, friendly bees. And then, of course, you got these little guys flying around and, doing your bidding. So that's a lot of fun. Okay, moving right along. All right, this one, I remember this guy, due to the turban on a unicycle. Again, I'm trying to push the limits of, he's like a whirling dervish guy, but obviously he's from a circus. And I had a friend of mine who was just like, oh man, my favorite drawing that you have of these guys is your crack monkey guy with the grenades and stuff. And I'm just like, whatever, dude. Again, recurring theme, got the little fez there. He's pretty cool. He turned out pretty cool looking. I like his beard. He's very stylish looking. Again, we got a girl who's kind of dressed up kind of like a mummy, and obviously a snake charmer. And I did add some actual hieroglyphics on her, because as I mentioned before, I do know a little bit of hieratic. It doesn't really say anything though. It's just more for flavor, right? And then of course this guy, I don't know if you can guess what weapon of choice he likes there, but he's obviously plays around with knives, cutlery a little bit. I thought it'd be funny to put a spoon there, but that was after the fact. And I don't know, but make your own guys. Have a guy that throws spoons, like in I think was it the Mystery Man? No, he threw forks. That's what it was. Here I have 3 other characters, because this crazy shadow counts as a being that comes off of her, and she's kind of like some weird, I don't know, just necromancer type. It kind of like the contrast of darkness versus light here, because this guy's obviously, I was inspired by the Saint Bernards, and he's like a bear, of course, but Saint Bernards who had whatever it was, the magic juice in their thing. I think it was alcohol. And the people that would get trapped in the Alps, whatever. Anyway, but he's got a little staff of healing back there. It's got a little caduceus on it and a red cross. So obviously he's the medic in the group, and he's a magical bear, guys. Come on. All right, work with me here. More in the necromancer vein here. I got the necromancer that actually knows what he's doing over here, and he's scoffing at the wannabe necromancer who obviously went to necromancer junior college and didn't go to the main university. So all he can animate is like tiny skeletons. He can't obviously, and this one's like attacking these guys with a bunch of flowers, and it's like, haha, and I don't know, kind of fun. All right, moving on. Gothic arts and crafts. That's a lot of fun right there. Okay. And, in D&D, you got lizard folk. Back in my day, we just called them lizard men, okay? And I always liked having animal variants in my games. So these guys, they are lizard folk, but they're more chameleon-like. So this guy's clueless. This guy's going after a fly. You can't quite see it, but this fly lands on her thigh there. He's like, smack. Instead, his sticky tongue is going to be stuck there. And these are like wood elves, you know. And this guy is starting to turn colors, like he's just trying to get away from the drama, you know, to blend in with the background. His own little creative camouflage there. Because why can't art be fun and funny at the same time? So it's like, he's like, oh God, you know, so he's wondering if this guy's going to retaliate. Who knows? Who knows? Here I got kind of like a set of bird creatures, like a Kenku type thing, you know, Asian type warrior here. I was thinking of, you know, like there's birds that are flightless, you know, like the ostrich, you know, has wings, but it doesn't really use them. You know what I mean? So instead, it's decked out where its talons are going to be way more, you know, as evidenced by this with the little skull, and it's got a crazy axe type spear thing on its face. So I just thought that's kind of an interesting combo. And then of course I got this weird were-vulture type guy over here. So it's kind of different. What else do I got? All right, I got some kind of crazy. I had always pictured him being some desert being of sorts. You know, he's got some magic weapon there, but his skin is all dried out looking. You know, it's all desiccated. And I have some faux Egyptian in there. So here's a traditional lizard folk that's more crocodilian, you know, and his tail back here, it's got like a little attachment on it with a little, like he couldn't smash you with every other appendage he has. He has to have that goofy little thing back there. I've got like a little werecat here. One of my favorite characters, this is actually based on one of my characters. I had a werecat, and he was a gnome lycanthrope. And somebody gave me a hard time. They said, oh man, if you would have picked a bobcat, you could have gotten, you know, some pluses to your strength. And I didn't want it. For flavor, I wanted to play a cat. You know, I knew what I was doing. And so he was pretty cool. He was a fighter rogue, and he was pretty amazing, actually. And then I don't know what her deal is. I really don't. She's just some crazy, she could be a crazy fey creature. I have no idea, guys. I don't know. But yeah, who's going to mess with that? That's kind of creepy looking. So, guys ready? Moving along. All right. So, some of these guys are more or less, you know, in the scene for the main one. But so I got this crazy banshee thing, and these guys are like, oh, shut up. You know, she's just obviously too loud. And they're not traveling with her or anything, but I tried to give them their own, you know, distinctives, that sort of a thing. Here I got this guy. I don't know what his deal is. He's got some kind of crazy attitude. And then I got some other dude back here. He's like a horse-ish druid guy. I was starting to run out of steam at this point. As you can see, I'm up in by 68 through 73. I have a crazy spider dude back here. Some little halfling guy with a dual-bladed weapon and a crazy, you know, tin pot hat. A weird disembodied head. I don't know where this thing came from. Kind of makes me think of, you know, the Doom video game with those flaming skulls flying around. I don't know. That just he was cool to draw though. I really like his design. But if you just saw a head floating at you, that would be pretty weird. It kind of harkens back to the guy from page 1. The demon guy that's trapped in that little pocket universe. And then this guy, I don't know what his deal is, but he obviously, maybe some weird warlock thing, but he's got some crazy armor going on. So and obviously the year had changed, because down here it says 2018 on it. So this took me a few months to work on, and I think this is one of the last ones I got. And you guys, I know I've drawn more than this, because this tells me I got to 76. I know I got into the 80s. I think there's there's one more page floating around. So again, I got a, you know, homage to a little bit of Mortal Kombat here. Looks like one of the guys from that. This guy's definitely Super Saiyan. You know, he's a weird psionicist or something like that. And this guy doesn't care. He's just there to, you know, he's gonna grill the sausage. and do whatever. So if you guys like this, like and subscribe. Again, this is what the challenge can look like. It doesn't have to be crazy detailed or anything. I had some fun with my cross hatching and shading, but this is kind of what it can look like. So get out there and do some art, draw something, have some fun, and I'm going to sign off. You guys have a great night. God bless.